All right, guys, thank you very much for watching today. What we've got a very special guest. We've got JP, John Polley, who someone that we've got to know through different, different platforms such as Filex and FitX, PTA Global Mentor, really all-around nice guy, JP, always has plenty of time for us and involved in a lot of things. Today we're going to talk about a lot of things, but I think what I've always taken away from JP's stuff is movement. He loves the idea of movement and having everything functional in a genuine way, not in a, I suppose in a way that people say, oh, it's functional that I do this, but it's not really overly functional. Everything he talks about is everyday practice, and it's something that I've really enjoyed through all of your lectures, JP, and I have to say many things throughout your lectures have really blown my mind in different ways to approach training. So thank you for being with us today, and thank you for spending your time and giving us a bit of your time, and thank you very much. But let's, what's a little rundown? Can you give everyone a little bit of a intro to yourself as well?
Happily, and it's my pleasure, Travis, I should just say, to be talking to everyone today. I really love doing these things. I speak far better spontaneously than I do in an organised fashion, so that works really well for me. So interviews is my kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm very similar.
Yeah. So with regard to what I'm doing, really, I've been in the industry 12 years, and really practicing properly for about the last 11.
Yep.
I started off with how everyone else starts off. It was a career change for me. I was 35 and I was kind of done with everything else. I had a furniture company in the UK, and it doesn't easily transfer to fitness. So I retrained and literally started again, and along the way had a relationship come along, which brought me here to Australia.
Ah, so you're British.
My background is very much that, yeah, I started out just like everyone else, Cert 3, Cert 4 in fitness, and started doing things the fairly kind of traditional way. It was weights, it was cardio, and then once I come to Australia, I was already doing things a little bit differently. So I was already using whole body. I was already doing kind of complete, 45-minute workouts with a tennis ball, a basketball, and a football, for example, and things like that. So there was already things where I was thinking a bit differently, but I didn't really know why. Then I was lucky enough to be mentored by the likes of Dwyer and Sholdale Court. Had some exposure to the guys at PTA Global, and it completely changed the way I saw things in the sense really that it gave me the confidence to keep doing what I was doing, and actually underpinned with knowledge and some science as to why on earth I'd be doing what intuitively felt right for me to do, and obviously gave results to my clients. It wasn't about me, it was about them.
Yeah.
And then it leads me to 2018, where I've been a Filex presenter for 6 years in that kind of area of integrated movement, myofascial kind of movement.
Yeah.
And FitX, the New Zealand conference, which I love because the amount of friendships that are formed there.
I loved FitX as well. That was my first FitX experience, and I really loved it because I felt like the presentations were equal quality for sure. Maybe there wasn't quite the depth of presenters and stuff like that, but there was like the top quality, top-notch presenters all over the place. And I felt like you spend more time with someone like you, yourself, or Cam, or anyone who was there. I felt like everyone just had a bit more time for you, as opposed to Filex, where like it's,
It is, yeah. It's a bit more relaxed, and that you do feel like you have that time as well. Super friendly, but yeah, you don't feel the stress of a situation at all. It's really go at Filex, and that's not it's not a criticism. That's just how it is.
It's how it is.
That was really great. So I get to, if anything, I get to form proper connections at an event like FitX purely because it's a little bit more laid back, and you actually have the time to do that. And then coming back to the story, really, in the time since I've been here, I've been a Viper Master Instructor. I'm still a Sandbells Master Instructor, a power plate vibration technology. I'm also a Master Instructor for them. I've been a freeform board Master Instructor also, and I did some things for a company called Fitness, which was functional rig training. I did Stroops. So there's been a number of different things like that.
Stroops, okay, yeah. I just come across Stroops actually.
Yeah. So again, it's just anything that'll move the body in what I consider to be, there's a lot of, this word authentic gets a little bit overused for me, but it's the top of my values board on the wall here, right here in my studio. Authenticity comes first.
Yeah.
And it's just not been about authentic person. It's about, moving the body in the most authentic way, making authentic kind of connections and trying to actually reflect authenticity that you have, the essence of you effectively out there in the outside world, in your life and in your work, more importantly, in our
industry. Yeah, well, I think that's my big takeaway from you. Everything like that's how it feels when I deal with you. Like whenever we chat or whenever we talk about training, whenever we just chat, it's always very authentic. It's always very, it's always nice. It's always pleasant. It's always very nice and friendly to chat with you. So it's always it's a great thing.
I'm happy with that, and I get described as nice a lot. And there was a time when the word nice really got a hammering. And do you know what? I'm pretty happy if everyone goes, "God, he's such a nice guy."
Better than being an asshole.
Nice is a pretty good place to be. I'll be honest with you. Whilst it's not like that fervent, oh my God, he's the most inspiring guy I've ever met. But I'll tell you what, nice guys don't always lose. I can tell you.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I don't think too much about that sort of stuff, but I do think that it's always nice to be liked and, people want to talk to you and want to spend time with you and stuff like that. I think that's always a good sign.
If it helps people connect with me, then I'm very happy to fulfill that kind of a role, because I know I've met some people that are, as I was coming up through, that were such big names and such inspiring people in my mind that I actually got choked and froze when I eventually got to meet them. When I first got to meet, so Michel Delcourt was a huge influence.
Yeah, so when you shared with me that you'd done a bit of work with him, he's the Viper.
He invented Viper, and he's the head of the Institute of Motion in the States, which spits out the most fantastic information for the industry. If you haven't connected with the Institute of Motion, everyone out there, then do so. If you haven't connected with OD on Movement, Wire, then please do so. And if you haven't connected with PTA Global, for very, their tagline is they make the complex simple, which is what I'm all about, which is why I work with them. Then connect with those as well. They're just fantastic organizations to connect with in terms of information application and just some simple stuff to go, wow, that blows my mind. It's so simple, but it works.
Yeah, that's what I love about a lot of this stuff, that when you've had lectures and stuff like that and you've had talks, it's that philosophy on, wow, you know what, that is so simple, and the philosophy, it works. It's awesome. I love it. I always enjoy your lectures. They're always fun. They're always practical. They're always relevant. They're always, always enjoy it.
And for me, I think there's a lot of I don't know, ego's the wrong word. There's just an awful lot of interest in trying to make us sound really intelligent and go to lectures that will make us sound really intelligent and things like that. And you know what, it's okay to really educate yourself well and use and learn the big words, understand quite complex functions in the human body, but when you are dealing with a client, they may not want to hear that. There are some people that do. That's the way they connect, is through information and through the ability to educate themselves through you. But a lot of people actually, they want you to deal with them as a person. Please, just say my low back rather than your lumbofacial joints and things like that, because they can connect with you as a human in that way. So I do tend to use quite a lot of colloquialisms when I'm talking and when I'm educating, because I want people to really connect and absolutely understand what I'm trying to get at.
Well, I think it's important, like, as trainers, we don't think of some of this stuff as jargon, I'm a teacher, and I've been teaching for a while. Well, I suppose not that long. I was 5 years full-time teaching, and now I'm transitioning to full-time here with FEO as well. And that's something that was big through teaching, not talking to parents using lots of jargon. I think as trainers, you sort of forget some of these terminologies. For us, lumbar is pretty standard for most trainers, right?
Yeah.
But it is jargon. At the end of the day, it is jargon that, you know, like an average person may or may not, you know, they may not understand. So you can quite simply say, oh, your lower back, you know, like help strengthen your lower back. You know, you don't need to go on, oh, this will help strengthen your rectus spinae and your lumbar. It means nothing to a lot of people, you know. So I think that's an important thing to be aware of as trainers, you know.
Cool.
So today we're looking at some different principles on like 3D training, and we're going to go over a few different things, drills and fun and games and all that sort of stuff, and the importance of that connection.
Yeah, really, what I thought I'd talk to you about today is this concept of three-dimensional movement. And it sounds pretty simple, you know. We've got the sagittal plane, the frontal plane, and the transverse plane. It's just like, yeah, that's simple enough. I do some exercises in that. And sure enough, I think a lot of people do. We are a hugely sagittally dominant industry. There's a lot of forwards, backwards, up, down. So again, technical jargon there, right? And
well, yeah, forwards, upwards, backwards, you know, up, down. That's good speak there.
So that's we get a lot of that in our industry, and we also do a lot of exercises that really we would only actually physically perform those movements in a gym. And you know what? I have no criticism for any of that, because if it conditions the human body, I'm completely fine with that. I guess the thing that I'm really interested in is making sure that that we're not just doing movements that the human body is not authentic to the human body, as it were, because some of those concentric contractions, they are hardly ever used in terms of as soon as you step out of the gym, you don't use them anymore. And I guess the other thing is that if, you know, the tissues of our body build up along the lines of stress, and we're only putting certain lines of stress through the body, well, then what about the rest of it? What happens to the rest of it? So that whole concept is what I'm really interested in, and I guess really we don't even really do a huge amount of sagittal movement here, because what we are is the alternative. So if people want to go away and do their strength training, no criticism of that. It does condition the body. It does, you know, augment strength and bone density and all those things that we talk about. But we might get those people that come along to us once a week, and it augments, it supports, it, you know, it complements all that other thing. It's also, you know, I find it hugely enjoyable, and it just feels right when people start doing it. It just feels right. Yeah. To the point where, you know, I've had, in my time here at B3, my business here, we've had a CrossFit coach come and work here, and then gradually reduce the amount of CrossFit that she did, and then got better at CrossFit.
Implementing some of these other strategies.
Because it's what her body most needed. She was so hammered in that sagittal plane that she brought into this three-dimensional movement, and she started doing comps and getting better in comps.
Yeah, it's one of these things that I often talk about when I do my videos, you know, with kettlebells or whatever, is this 3D idea of the application for sport. Obviously, there's everyday life, but I always, you know, I love sport, so I usually revolve back to sport. And I know you've done a lot of things with golfers and stuff like that. But I think, you know, like golf and tennis and all these things, you have to work in these different areas. You've got to stretch and reach out here and create power and force out here, or up here, or down here. And that's what I loved. And I always, the one thing that's always stuck with me, one of your ones, was the core, where we went to this core thing. And the only reason I went to it was because it was I saw the name and went, The only reason I went to it was because you were doing it. And you were said, your first thing was, okay, well, when we train the core, where are we going to be? Where, and everyone's like, oh, you know, you're generally lying down, you know, don't plank. And yours was, where do you use your core most? Standing up. And this is the sort of stuff that I loved. And it was like, that's the sort of simple stuff that it's mind blowing. You know? Like,
and absolutely. So life and sport transferability, I mean, that's big for me. And everyone thinks you're just trying to be trendy when you do that. But genuinely, you know, people, when they're performing actions, they tend not to kind of line their feet up and perform a certain, you know, that's very conscious. It just happens, and we want them, their body and their brain, their nervous system, to be conditioned to be able to take on these multi-directional movements, but also to be ready when something unexpected happens as well. The tissues need to be ready, and the communication needs to be good between brain and body.
Yeah.
So from that point of view, completely justifiable, even if we just left it there.
Yeah.
For me though, I've done a bit of study with on the anatomy trained side of things, on the soft tissue side of things, which is all about how connective tissue and muscles working together, the myofascial lines, myo being muscle and fascia being connective tissue, they form chains around our body. Now, if you look at where the tissue travels and how those tissues affect each other, then life gets really interesting, because then you realize that, you know, the left big toe and your right shoulder have a lot to do with each other, for example. So if that's the case, and you have an issue somewhere in the body, or a movement dysfunction somewhere in the body, well then where might it be coming from? That's the thing. Also, if those things don't communicate really, really well, well then we've got difficulties there too. Yeah. So really, if you take a step back and go, okay, then where are we starting with this? I use the concept of, big word alert, tensegrity or biotensegrity. So in other words, I'm just going to bend and get this. So this, for example, is a tensegrity model. So as you can see, what it is this is wood and elastics, and they form a shape and a structure, and whenever you press it, it just bounces back. And this, by the way, this particular one is a kid's toy. So it demonstrates that what we do here is, whenever we make a movement, it will return to that same shape. But the wood, no pieces of wood touch.
Yeah.
Okay. So the reason it holds this shape and this structure is because of the elastic. It's because of the tensional forces on the elastic. Okay. So if we then tied a knot in one piece of elastic, number one is it forms a different shape straight away. So the entire model has compensated around this one point, and then every movement that then is performed with that knot in place,
becomes different.
Every movement is different to when it's not there.
Yeah.
Okay, so we get that happening. You know, probably know where I'm going with this. In terms
no, this is this is one of the ones that I've seen, and it's like, man, that's so like.
So you do something like this, and you can see how this one here really sticks out quite a lot more so than when we don't have that there. So if we then transfer this to the human body theme, we go, okay, then, well, here and here, this is really having to protrude, stick out much further than it was before, to compensate for this knot that we have here, this limitation that we have here.
On the other side. Where
are you going to get pain? Well, actually, pain is going to manifest over here. Or dysfunction, or an overstretch and overworked tissue is going to. But what really is the issue? Because here we're going to stretch, and we're going to mobilize, and we're going to foam roll, and we're going to get massage. But where's the issue? Oh, hang on, look over here. So that's really, really important. So from a kind of a way of viewing the human body, I think tensegrity, or what they now call biotensegrity. So all mammals are biotensegrity models. So look that up. By the way, if people are interested in that, Dr. Stephen Levin and biotensegrity.com. Levin, L-E-V-I-N. So, and that's biotensegrity.com will give you more information on that. It's just a really useful concept, because effectively the pieces of wood in the structure are the bones, and the elastics are effectively what Thomas Myers in anatomy trains describes as the myofascial lines. They are long pieces of elastic which help our system stay in balance.
Yeah.
The other thing is, the reason that they are apart, you see, if I tied a knot, if you get a limitation in that, suddenly these two pieces of wood, you may not be able to see, but these two pieces of wood are closer than when I let go. So in other words, this really messed with my head when I first found this out. If our tissues are super healthy, our joints are held apart.
Yeah.
If our tissues are healthy, their joints are held apart. And we're not pulled together by the tissues of our body. But even under anesthetic, you cut muscle and connective tissue, it springs apart. the tension is that way, not pulling us together. So that really messes with me, because I'm like, okay, then that doesn't make sense, because surely the knee is being jammed together. The tissues are jammed. No, healthy tissues will hold the knee joint apart. And nothing came into more clarity for me than when I had an osteoarthritis client. She was bone on bone and in severe pain. And I asked her to bend, and she bent about this much before she was in pain.
Yeah.
And then we worked together for 4 weeks. I saw her 3 times in 4 weeks and gave her some mobility exercises which would affect the lines, where I saw restriction, and the connective tissues especially. And what happened after 4 weeks was she did perform full 90-degree squat and walked without a limp, with no pain anywhere. And for me, it's just like, well, I can't change osteoarthritis. It's impossible to change osteoarthritis. But what might I have done? Well, it makes sense to me that if she's like this and it goes bang and it goes ow, and now we've got this, so she can now do this. She can be, she can actually have a situation where she is symptom-free, but still fully has the condition. So she has a completely working, authentic body, but still maintains that condition, that debilitating condition that she has.
Yeah, wow.
It's a pretty amazing thing. And when I went through that experience, it was just like, okay, then this stuff,
opening doors,
some credit.
Yeah.
So how does that then transfer into training? Well, again, as you can imagine, if we're looking at one part, so for that lady, she had a huge amount of restriction in her hips and in her feet, i.e. the joints above and below the knee.
Yeah.
No issue with the knee. So if that's the case, then surely if we can produce far more effective movement at the major joints, the major intersections where these lines go through, well, then we're going to move better. If we move better, we train better, we enhance more tissue. Now, there's something called Davis's law. So I talked about tissue lays down along the lines of force. That is Davis's law. It's like Wolff's law with bone. Davis's law is that tissue will lay down along the lines of force. So going back to the point from earlier, if our force is all technical jargon alert, if our force is all uppy downy and forwardsy backwardsy, then we have an issue, don't we? Because what about if you go a bit off center? If instead of going to 12 o'clock, you go into 2 o'clock, then you go into 9 o'clock, then you go into 5 o'clock, then you go into 7 o'clock. Well, actually, the tissues need to be worked in that fashion if you want to be efficient and not have problems over time.
Yeah.
And this is why we would see, hugely strong guys in the gym, if they move house and suddenly they're having to grab something and move in this kind of forceful manner, and also they take the load on at end range instead of they have it close by first and then go to end range. So the nervous system is ready. Suddenly the nervous system isn't ready because it's not been trained to be ready. Then they're performing a transverse plane action that they would never do at any other time. Suddenly bodies start to break down. So very strong, fit-looking people can actually get injured at the slightest, weirdest thing. Why would picking up a flat string TV off to my side cause me an injury?
Yeah, I mean, or even the simple stories of footballers who are playing with their kids, and they're obviously in their daily training with a lot of footballers is that sagittal style, uppy down and forwards backwardy. They start playing with their kids, and they sort of go to, and they, like the amount of stories you hear, they've done their knee or whatever, and they were picking up their kid.
Yeah.
And you're going, man, you guys are like 110 kilos and your kid's probably 15 kilos.
Yeah.
It's not all and they always put it down to bad luck sort of thing, right? But, let's.
And there's a number of things at play there. It could be that, because, footballers for a start, they move a lot on the field in, 3 dimensions.
Yep.
Their training, I don't know what they do with their training in the gym as to whether it's all A, sagittal, and B, contractile. So in other words, it's pulling joints together. Okay. But if that's all it is, then what then they need to be out on the field is they need to be more open and long. So if you can train those tissues long, so not just perform a squat, for example, but actually perform like a skater step, for example, where you would step and drive your hand towards the opposite foot. Now, at the end of that exercise, what you'll find is that the greatest load goes in at the greatest length of the tissue. So it gets, as I reach my hand towards my foot, maybe I've got a dumbbell or a sandbell or something in my hand, and I'm driving my hand towards that foot, what's happening is from this right hand to my left foot, there's this chain of tissue that gets loaded. In the middle of that chain of tissue is the butt. So glutes are having to fire and stabilize the action massively. There's a whole heap of other stuff going on, don't get me wrong, but you know, I want to use more traditional terms just to explain this. So quads, glutes, and hammies are really having to stabilize the action. At the maximum amount of force into the body is at the maximum length that they will go to. As you come out of that action, it gets easier, 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 easier. So what we're then doing is we're saying to those tissues, with a submaximal load, I might add, what we're saying with those tissues is, hey, do you know what? Can you be strong in this lengthened position? Can you be strong there? Because then the joints are more likely to stay more open. The tissues aren't going to be trying to pull you together. So if you can train the body, A, three-dimensionally, and B, long with length tension. I don't really mean eccentric. Eccentric training is slightly different, but with length tension in a three-dimensional manner, well, then our bodies get used to that, and you have a training effect from a physical tissue perspective. Davis's law is in play, of course. You're lying down tissue along new lines of force, but then from a neurological point of view, you are then getting your system working really beautifully, because you're putting those, the more you do something, the better you become in terms of brain-body connection, not just in physical body response. Yep. So that's why I'm right-handed. I'm so great at writing with my right hand, and I'm so poor with my left hand, right? Because I've done so much more with this hand. So this brain-body connection is massive. It's the same when we train. If we're not doing stuff, we're not going to be very good at it. We're going to be poor at it. So if we can perform movements that are both three-dimensional and create this length tension, our joints are held further apart. We've got better enhanced joint range of motion, plus the tissues are being trained in a way that's authentic to us. Because, by the way, bending down and reaching across to pick something up off the floor,
pretty common.
Fall up off of the field is actually pretty common. So if we can train the body in the way that we might then use it in life and sport, then fantastic. I'm not saying it's better than other training. I'm just saying it's something that we should put in the mix, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's, you're spot on. It's, you know, I've not done, you know, I suppose traditional training for a long time, where you're looking at your bicep curls and your lat pull downs and all that sort of, you know, stuff in a gym with the machines or whatever. I haven't done that for a long, long time, but it's, you can see the people in the gym who are doing that sort of stuff. And then all of a sudden, like you say, you take them out of the realm and have them twist and pick and move, and they find it very difficult. Not only, I mean, my mobility is one thing. It's not my strength. My mobility is not my strength. But, you know, like for some people, just even moving in fairly simple patterns, you can see the difficulty they have on even using that mental connection of getting that right hand down to the left foot. And the thought they've got, hang on a minute, my right hand's going to go to my left foot while I'm twisting. Like you said, if you're not practicing and you're not, you know, using those things on a regular way and training those sort of things, they, you know, is it sort of, you know, you don't use it, you lose it sort of thing almost.
Yeah, absolutely. And the irony is that, you know, certainly in my facility, we're teaching people how to move naturally, which like sounds like ridiculous, but that's the truth of the matter, because actually a lot of people have forgotten, you know, their bodies have forgotten. You know, you need to reawaken that stuff, because I can guarantee you, you know, I've got 3 kids. I don't see a lot of them performing, you know, a bench press or a lat pull down or a bicep curl type action very often. And that's not me hammering traditional training, because you know what? The irony for me is that I got into this stuff, I learned this stuff, and I help people train in this way, and I'm a movement therapist, so I help people get out of kind of issues with you know, pain or dysfunction. The irony for me is that, you know, 7 years of doing that and actually completely ignoring traditional training, that's my weakness right now. You know, most people in our industry are kind of a little bit dominant in this kind of traditional zone and could use a little bit more work elsewhere. I've kind of not done any work in there. So the irony is that now I've got guys coming in and I'm saying, you know what, my weakness is what you do. I need to do some of what you do.
Yeah.
So, you know, I actually, you know, I need to put a bit, man, fatherhood is tough. So,
yes.
so I've been able to train less, and I've had far more diseases brought into my house in the last kind of 4 years or so.
Yeah.
So I've gradually reduced the amount of muscle that I have on my body. It's gone. So I need to get that back. What's the best way of doing that? Traditional training, for sure.
Yeah.
So if you want to train your body and condition it, and also incidentally have it look good, we need some of that. If you want to have your body, you know, you want to look good and run for the bus and pick up your kids at funny angles, then do both.
Yeah.
But hey, do you know what? Bodybuilding is a sport where you must do a lot of that. And if you do it really, really well, and you've got great genetics and the right kind of diet going in, man, you'll be fantastic at that. Do those guys care if they can run for a bus? No, not at this point in time. It's not functional for them. It's hugely functional for their traditional training.
Yeah.
So, I remember there's a guy, Mark Davo Davis, who presents a lot, and I've seen him talk about functional training. Well, hang on, deadlifts, hugely functional exercise. Well, especially if you're harvesting pumpkins, because you'll do, big pumpkins. You'll do a heap of deadlifts that day when you're harvesting pumpkins. Incidentally, I think deadlift is fantastic, but I also think it's almost like a underutilized exercise, because we only deadlift here. So why can't we take it sub-maximal and actually put the load off to one side and deadlift it up and lift and put it down on the other side? And man,
if you're traveling,
offset loads,
you're traveling with your suitcase, you do your shopping, whatever the case may be. How often are you, like I love sort of farmers carries and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like that is so common and used in our everyday life. Like how often are you picking something up from the side of your body and going, okay, I've got to pick this up and carry it over there. Like you said, you're not picking it up on a barbell with an even load on both sides from the front and setting up, and like that's why I love this. Like you said, like people refer to deadlifts and stuff as functional training, which it is. Like the hinging and the stuff like that. But how often do you have the even load at the front and I mean, there's that movement, that hinge. I think that's maybe where we should focus more in, using the hinges and those movement patterns and adding those loads in different ways, which is, why I always enjoy playing around with different things, whether it be sandbags or kettlebells or, and that's what I was going to I wrote down here, so in you mentioned some of the stuff that you do for, 3D training. You said some sandbells, so that, they're the neoprene things, which are really cool and they're really fun. Throw them around a bit and they're fun. Like I've done one of your things on those. They were really cool. What other things would you, might you utilize in some of this 3D training that you're doing?
Sure. I mean, great question, because, up to now we've just been talking about it like this kind of an idea, a concept, and this is like, well, actually physically and practically, what does it look like and what do you use? Well, sandbells, incidentally, I've become a master trainer in stuff that I love. I don't become a master trainer in anything that I'm not, I don't use, I'm not interested in. So I've only ever kind of, said yes to things that make sense to me. So sandbells are in my studio. They get used every single day for a heap of reasons. But, the fact that it's a constantly moving load is a really good thing. But the fact that it creates, this grip strength, which helps stabilize the shoulder, is a really, really great thing too. I originally got them in for my golfers because, grip strength is really, really important. And then we ended up using them with everyone. And even to the point where, it's a neoprene bag filled with sand, go from 1 kilo to 23 kilos. But even if you just want to get someone kneeling, you can just slide them underneath people's knees just for a bit of extra comfort on a hard floor and things like that. So they're used every single day. Viper from Michelle Delacour's tool, I will use those. We use those every single day because of the nature of the load is such that you load movement as opposed to perform sagittal concentric work. So if I can take a Viper and take it out to the side, what then happens, if I back away a bit, what then happens is this lateral line of tissue all the way down the other side of my body stabilizes that, and it stabilizes it by going longer and switching on and activating. So again, we're getting great joint motion. What we also get is, you know, there's three big joints that we really want to work well on. It's the foot ankle, the pelvic ring, and the thoracic ring. So those, if we get those three working really, really well, humans tend to function pretty damn well everywhere else too. So sandbells, Vipers, I use vibration, so power plate technology in the studio. We've got three big commercial machines here and a portable as well. So a lot of people think that that's just a kind of a gimmick for fat loss. We don't use it at all. So what we're looking to do there is, you know, if your body has been stimulated 30 times a second subconsciously, because your brain can't even process that, then the amount of change that you can get in tissue is massively enhanced. So if I want to see where can we go with this, I will use vibration. So it's both used as a kind of a wellness, kind of almost like a massage tool at one end, and completely a performance tool at the other. So I've used those with professional golfers. I've used it with people who have come in with debilitating pain and chronic disease. So they will get used every single day in the studio. Sometimes people use vibration for 55 minutes of an hour. Other people, it'll be 2 minutes of the hour, because everything is specific to the human. We use cables.
Okay.
That's a really common thing for us. And freeform boards, which are like these flat round
wheels,
wheels. Again, they just create this flowing motion. So from point of view,
like sliders, almost like, you know, those,
they are like sliders, but yeah,
they've got the wheels on it and they move around a bit more, right? I've done a small thing on them before, and they were a bit of fun as well.
They're amazing. So yeah, I was lucky enough to be a master trainer for freeform board for a little while. And then we use less traditional. So we'll use softballs, tennis balls, balloons, medicine balls, all those kind of pieces of kit. And then we've got a few rackets that we can knock back and forth, badmintons. And so it's a matter of actually kind of creating these kind of ways for people to engage. And then with all of those tools, we'll use them the way they're designed to be used, and also in a completely non-traditional way as well. We might get a big Viper and get people to throw a tennis ball, try and get it inside the Viper from a distance and things like that. Just to start getting this hand-eye thing going on and natural movement going on. And also, if I say, hey, let's do 30 5-meter shuttle runs, that's not very interesting. But try 30 throws of a tennis ball into a Viper and go out and collect the ball each time from wherever it is in the studio. They don't even know they're doing 30 shuttle runs.
It's exactly what I was going to say. Like what you're describing to me sounds like fun. You know, like I grew up as a gymnastics coach, and not a great one. You know, my brother is a high level gymnast, and I did gymnastics from the time I was 2 or 3 years old, and then began coaching at like 14 sort of thing, and coached for 10 years, coached in America and stuff. And all this sort of stuff that you're describing, it's stuff that I did when I was a kid, coaching and doing gymnastics. You know, like these games, these movements, and throwing, like badminton. We used to play badminton and volleyball all the time in gymnastics, and we do all sorts of different things, and we'd be balancing and we'd throwing and all this sort of stuff. It sounds fun. To me, it takes me back to sort of when I was a kid almost, which I think is important, because I remember once, I don't know where I saw it, where I heard it, but someone was talking about being in the snow and a kid going down on the toboggan and then running back up the hill and then going down on the toboggan and then running back up the hill. And you go, as an adult, that's bloody hard work. The kids will do it all day, because it's fun, like it's whereas if you get someone and say, okay, we're going to run up and down this hill 10 times. That's stage work. Yeah, it's a great workout. It's a lot more fun if you can slide down though.
Absolutely. That was a TED talk by my friend Fraser Qualch. So he's a Canadian coach presenter. He's behind TRX pretty much worldwide. So he was lucky enough to do a TED talk, and that was his TED talk. So it's cool that you've referenced that as well. All these guys, you're referencing all these guys that I know. It's so kind of you to bring those into the mix as well. And the one thing that has been kind of circulating in my brain while we've been talking also is that there was one thing that I remember when I was doing a lot of the stuff through Viper with Michelle, is that that he talks about how you are conditioning the nervous system, the brain nervous system, and the body to work as one.
Just quickly before,
yeah.
So for people who may be listening, a Viper,
Yeah.
they may not know what it is because maybe it's a bit out there. Vipers are almost like a tube. It's rubber handles and it's hollow. All right. And then you got weights and they go from like 4 kilos up to about 20 something kilos, I think, right?
So they go from 2 kilos to 20 kilos, and 20 kilos doesn't sound like a lot, but I can assure you that when you have 2 handles here, and you have a large rubber cylinder, and you hold it off to this one side here, what you will find is that 20 kilos is no longer 20 kilos, because the only time a Viper weighs what it has written on the tube is when it's standing there on the ground in front of you. You start moving that load around. The most hammered Vipers in my studio are the 4 and 6 kilo Vipers, because you're not doing this, because there's a heap of other tools that can do that for you, so that's great. So, but you load movement, and it's the same with the sandbells. The ones that get hammered the most are the 3.5 kilo sandbells, not the 23 kilo sandbell, which hardly gets touched.
Yeah, and I think also on that, it's because you can probably play around and have a bit more fun with them as well, right? With the heavier ones, you can't take them out into these weird ranges of motion. So it's a lot harder to, right? So with the lighter ones, you can play around with them and get like these weird ends of motion.
Correct. And it's much safer to do that, because you don't use maximal loads and do 3-dimensional movement unless you've been doing it for a very, very long time. Whereas maximal loads with traditional lifts, that's the safest way to do maximal loads. That's why it exists. And then getting the body to communicate all as one. Just to go back to that point, there was this thing where you see injuries happen, and Michelle said if you have a specific type of training and it's not authentic to what you're then doing, whether that be in life or sport, what you'll get is what he called a critical delay. So in other words, because they're not singing together, they're not used to singing together, what happens is the body suddenly needs, an event happens and the body needs to respond without thought even occurring. The body just needs to respond. There is a critical delay because those communications just have never happened before. So you get that critical delay, which is a microsecond, and that's when injuries occur. So it's what the Gray Institute would call the transformational zone. That point when you go from one to the next, it's the transformational zone. So it's that point at which you need to be ultimately conditioned, and most people aren't conditioned.
Well, I mean, and that's where you're tying it all back to that whole functional, right? It's that ultimate condition of doing your everyday life, everyday patterns, and it doesn't need to be in the sport realm. It doesn't need to be in. It can be the shops. It can be anything. Like how about like even think about like a sandbell. Now you go shopping, go buy your I don't know if people eat a lot of rice or something like that. But you go and buy a lot of rice. You go get a 2.5, 3, 4 kilo bag of rice. You got to pick it up from down here and you got to move. It's it's super relevant for your everyday life.
I mean, the other thing that is really popular now, and I'm kind of really glad that it is popular, because it looks like a gimmick for some, I'm sure, is all the body weight training things that are coming through. Like Animal Flow is a big influence on me in terms of the way I think and feel about the body. If people do Animal Flow, and if I do Animal Flow, for example, that's the way my body's meant to feel. I've done some Animal Flow. It feels really open, strong. My body seems to take on a naturally great posture. I feel alive. All of those things. Our body feeling good and giving us those messages that it feels good. That's not a sign that you haven't trained hard enough. That's actually a really good sign that you're training brilliantly well. So a lot of my clients say, "Oh, I felt a general fatigue the next day, but I wasn't hurting. Is that okay?" I'm like, it sounds perfect to me, because
you need to wipe yourself out every.
Exactly, and I know, there's a badge of honor in some places where if you haven't grown up, you haven't worked hard enough. And in any other area of our life, if we woke up and we feel like we ache all over, we're getting cold sweats, and we're throwing up, we ring a doctor. Something is terribly wrong in your body, saying something is terribly wrong, everyone. Can you do something about it? And so it was just weird to me that in some places that it would be, that would be a desired outcome.
Yeah.
And that means you've taken your body to a place that it doesn't want to be going. That, I mean, you know, it's rare that that would be justified for me, but that's well,
yeah, I mean, how often? Yeah, it's the only time I can think of something like that is that super competitive sporting realm. You know, like, why else do you need to get yourself into that situation? You know, I don't know. I'm on your end there. Like, I don't enjoy that working out till you're dead, working out till you're sick sort of thing. It's not a pleasant experience for me. I much rather, you know, be able to move the next day and be able to do things.
We want people to be able to do what they normally would want to do the following day and the day after that, more importantly. So it's about getting a balance. Yes, of course they're going to ache because it's a new stimulus. So that's when, of course, you are going to, you know, create. If you're going to create change, there is going to be, you're going to have an awareness of that over time. But yeah, if you can do stuff that feels really good and has you feeling better as the days go by, then you're onto a fairly good thing. And frankly, we've been talking about three-dimensional movement. We've been talking about you know, balancing that with some traditional movement. We've been talking about bodyweight training. We've been talking about, you know, very traditional stuff that everyone knows about. But the bottom line is that really move more and move in a way that really speaks to you, because that is the ultimate in authenticity, isn't it?
I think this is sort of a great way to sum it all up as well. You know, when I worked at a chain gym, and people would walk in and they'd sit down for the consult and they go, I don't really like gyms. And you go, okay, so what is it that you're here for? Oh, I want to lose weight or whatever. Okay, well, so if you don't like gyms, do you enjoy doing something else? Oh yeah, you know, I love dancing. And I'd work at the chain gym, so it wasn't, you know, probably not the best thing for me to be saying to someone coming to. I go, why spend your money at the chain gym? Go do some dancing. You know, like, go play tennis. Go like, do what you enjoy. You know, like, it's you lose sight of, like, you know, what fitness is and what health is, and if it's not being authentic to yourself, and if it's not doing what you want to do and being able to do the things you want to do, what is it? You know, like, what's the purpose? If you don't like lifting in a traditional sense in a gym, get out and do something different. You know, animal flow, Viper, whatever it might be. What do we do? The form board, whatever it might be. Find what you enjoy doing, and I think that's just a message that's, I feel, is lost a little bit in trainers and training in general.
Yeah.
I feel too often it's put like a negative light on. Oh, you've got to hurt. You've got to no pain, no gain.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not my philosophy on training, at least. You know, and it doesn't sound like it's necessarily yours either.
No, I mean, I would flip the no pain, no gain and say no pain, more gain.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's just an important message to remember. I think if that's the take home from this chat today, I think for people, it's getting people to work in different planes, getting people to work across the planes simultaneously as well. So it's not just whether it be the frontal all the time or the sagittal. It's working in those planes while continuing to work and continuing to move, having fun. I think is an important message as well, and being authentic to your clients. So if your clients, you know, maybe they don't want to be in the gym. Maybe they want to be in the gym. You know, like, it's just trying to find what it is that they really deep down want.
Absolutely. And I guess I should just mention at the end here, like, people can connect with me online. I do an online mentorship. I'm in Perth, Western Australia, so I do a face-to-face one this year. That's now going online, so they can just connect with me at jp@b3mlw.com.au. b3mlw.com.au.
What I'll do is I'll at the end, we'll get those details and we'll put them below the video so that anyone
can. Perfect. And then yeah, so if they want to go through that concept of okay, then where do I start? That's the starting point. It's 4 months. You get the practice in between our sessions, and it's you get some one-on-one time with me as well as some group education time, and it will just take people through, introduce what are these tissues of the body, how do we interact with them, how can we mobilize them, how can we train them. Also, are there some useful tools in my business that will actually simplify my ability to deal with my clients and it's that kind of a thing.
Awesome. Well, JP, thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure.
And I have a feeling there'll be some more content coming up, and hopefully a few more chats as well.
Good stuff. It's been a pleasure to speak to you, Travis.
Cheers, mate. I'll stop.